If you want to know who you are and what is your purpose in the world, and do you have value, or are you expendable? Are you worthy of an honorable status in the world? You need to know about your brain and about your body. We have never before in time had the ability to say what the brain is truly doing chemically and anatomically until the last 30 years. When I was 18 years old, I wanted to know, who am I? I thought that I am what I have done, which is basically nothing significant except attend high school for most people. When I was 18 years old, I wanted to know, what is my purpose in life? I felt like there must be more to life than working a job and having a family. I felt there must be more to life than that. When I was 18 years old, I wanted to know why I felt that I didn't have much worth to the whole world. If there are millions of girls who can do what I do, and if that was true, then that means I'm expendable at my core. The truth must be that I'm expendable and exchangeable. And why did that make me feel so bad inside? Now I know the truth because I learned about how the brain works and the body. You are a brain with 5 senses, and your senses follow along a time and a place, which is how you produce your history. For the 5 senses to continue across time and places, they need to navigate the environment, and the environment is often filled with things which can damage and destroy those senses. Therefore, in the brain, the places where those senses are sitting, there are spaces next to them, which are for putting the senses together in sophisticated powers. For example, the eyes and the ears come together in a place named the temporal lobe, and it gives you a special power. The nose and the mouth come together in special places that give you special powers. Every part of the body can feel and can feel touch, and it comes together in a special place to make a special power. As I give you the blueprint for the 5 senses and the superpowers of the brain, then you will no longer feel like you are a blank space. You will absolutely know who you are completely and what's your purpose. And if you are so worthless that no one needs to care if you're alive or dead, you will know that the answer is that you are a head with a body walking across space and time, and that you have a purpose that cannot be replaced or discarded. Everyone has a value and the right to live. No one needs to be discarded for the greater good. You are an irreplaceable artifact of history, and if anyone annihilates you, the universe will put an exact copy of you back into that void. And this is why serial killers keep killing the same victims in the same way, or the same kind of victims. Something fundamental to who you are, your head and body, is memory. And that is because memory is how the 5 senses navigate the environment across space and time. There are 2 memory systems, the short-term memory and the long-term memory. The short-term memory is for the 5 senses, and the long-term memory is for navigating the environment. If you decide to ignore the long-term memory, you will have to navigate the environment and not use the memory for navigating. You would have to go across time and space, and instead of avoiding the danger, you would need to be constantly stronger than the dangers. The long-term memory is connected with your 3rd eye, and is also known as the frontal cortex, where you will plan in advance in a sophisticated way of going through the environment to avoid the danger or to acquire things. If you have only the short-term memory of the environment, you will have only the 5 senses telling you about the environment and the dangers of the environment. Short-term memory is a module of organizational behavior that the brain does, which is designed specifically for the imperative that something must be done with a filament of data. Short-term memory processing power is used towards the purpose that there is a specified filament of data with which something must be done. It is with this manner that the attention is prioritized and changed. There are 2 classes of data that continue to call imperatives upon the short-term memory processing space. One class is something must be done, and anomalous data. Therefore, search for a solution. In one class of something must be done and the data is recognized, you have familiarity with the information. Therefore, combine the studied or learned features to more volume of recognition. If there is nothing to be done, then there is no imperative on short-term memory. The fact of the data type, something must be done, demonstrates the transmission class involved. It is clearly a parallel processing technique to the dopamine transmitter. The dopamine transmitter has been found to be explicit to memory retention, and dopamine is explicit to motor signal transmission. Dopamine is your motivation chemical in the body. It makes you want to do something. Long-term memory. The hippocampus is for long-term memory. Hippocampus is crucial for episodic and spatial memory. Inside the part of the hippocampus, the entorhinal cortex, is one of the most profound tasks of this part is to know that the body is walking on a straight plane of existence, and it's either going right or it's going left if it changes direction. The movement across the space and the direction of right or left is essential to organizing the 5 senses into memory. It is how the brain knows where it has been and where it is going. The location of itself now compared to where the body has been before is a critical part of the memory system, and it makes all of the senses very connected to places. The long-term memory is important because it gives history. History is a contextual format that, by the integrity of its position as history, must represent change in the structure of information. History is a formatting device. History is by the virtue that it is an actual past event. An actual past event can be input in time, and it will actively modulate the information system structure in the processing of the current events to look towards the future. So the hippocampus is a critical infrastructure of the long-term memory. And so the Wikipedia describes the entorhinal cortex, which is connected and plays a role with the hippocampus. It's a place for memory, navigation, and the perception of time. This is according to Wikipedia. It's important in a role in declarative, which is autobiographical, so it's how you describe your own history, and episodes, which is like things that happen, events that happens, and semantic, which is like a language organization, the organization of language, memories, and in particular, spatial memories. It is also included in memory formation, memory consolidation, and memory optimization in sleep. It is responsible for how familiar, a pre-processing of familiarity of the input signals that it has, and in conditioning from those traces, and the association of impulses from the eye and the ear. It occurs in the entorhinal cortex. The eye is for scanning the environment, and the ear is for the orientation left and right of the self on the plane. And both are for detecting movement in the environment, and that is essential for navigating and for protecting the body from dangers in the environment. And the entorhinal cortex is the first area of the brain to be affected in Alzheimer's disease, which is a disease that shows marked symptoms of memory degradation due to proteins introduced into the body that accumulate in the brain. So for the hippocampus, the hippocampus shows an activation pattern in your autobiography of the memory, and that conversion in some kind of metadata, this syntactic format, which is like all of the adjectives and the ways that you describe it. Do you describe it in a nice way or a bad way? How do you see it? And in the preparation for vocalization and language expression, those are superpowers of those when those senses collide in those brain areas, makes superpowers. And it's there's an activation pattern in the remembrance of people, but not in specifically in the self. And there's activation patterns contributed by the short-term memory, conflicts, where it's needed, where there's a highly charged symbols, or we call it as amygdala charged insecure data that needs to be kept or sent to the long-term memory.